Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday evening. Hope you guys have had a great day so far. I hope you guys are having a great work week. And this video really pretty much going to re-go over some new information that we talked about in last night's video. And as the threat for the next several days being having the potential for severe weather. So that is what we're going to talk about in this video. We're going to break down each day and give as much detail as we can for each day between really tonight all the way through probably next Monday. Looks to be almost certain that there's going to be some form of severe weather going on. So that's what we're going to break down this evening. So if you guys have not subscribed, definitely consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. You guys got anything that I can pray over or anything anybody else can pray over, it gives me the opportunity to pray over it, and it gives everybody else the opportunity to pray over it. So definitely throw it in the comments. If it's unspoken, put that, and we will all pray over it for sure and pray for one another. So let's get going here. We got quite a few things to break down. It's going to be kind of the same way as last night's video, but we're going to talk about some new information because the short range models are starting to come into vision, if you will, and we can take a look at and break down with a little bit more confidence what could potentially happen. So right now there is a severe weather threat going on. There's a couple severe thunderstorm warnings up for this portion of the country. I think there was one up for New Mexico about 30 minutes ago before I made this video, but there is some severe weather ongoing. In fact, there's a slight risk that was introduced. It was upgraded from a marginal to a slight risk, so chances actually are increased right now for severe weather. But then again, I don't think it's a big deal, just a damaging wind threat and a hail threat, but hopefully you guys are staying safe out there. Tomorrow, a marginal risk, very conditional threat here. It really depends on if any storms do fire. I really think they will fire up here in Kansas. This is for tomorrow, Thursday, if I didn't mention that. I really do think there is going to be some isolated strong convection, an isolated supercell or two, but there will be a capping area of stable air loft. We talk about this a lot when we talk about severe weather, especially in the southern plains and middle part of the country. There's going to be an area of more stable, moist air in the atmosphere that will act as a stabilizer, if you will. Not a destabilizer, but a stabilizer. So prevent, even though you're going to have some dynamics in this place right here, in areas of western Oklahoma and then west central areas of Texas and northern areas, you're going to have the dynamics there with building moisture into the region, a little bit of cape in place. You're probably going to have that capping in place that really limits any kind of big time storms from getting going. And even if they do, you don't have a ton of dynamics in place to create a really severe environment for severe storms. But we are watching tomorrow. We'll see how this works out. There's also a marginal risk for severe storms up here in far western areas of Nebraska. Moving in to Friday, this is going to be our big day right here. Enhanced risk is now up. We talked about this a little bit this morning, and this includes southeastern areas of Nebraska and then eastern areas of Kansas, and then even stretching a little bit in the central areas. It's going to be a strong cutoff. Up here, there is high confidence that you're going to have enough moisture aloft and moisture at the surface where convection is going to fire up. That's why the enhanced risk is a little bit further up. Down here, stretching into Oklahoma, you have a ton of dynamics along a dry line that's going to set up where you have that very dry air, dry line, and then on the east side you have very moist air. So just along and just east of that dry line, you're going to have a chance for convection to fire up, and if it does, this slight risk could become a dangerous scenario. A lot of dynamics in a very kind of slim area just east of this dry line. But then again, just like we talked about for tomorrow's event, for Friday, you're going to have an even stronger area of a capping in place, stable air aloft, and the mid-levels actually, that is going to, you're going to have cape, at the surface, cape aloft above that stable air, an area of air that can really destabilize, but will it? And it doesn't matter if an updraft gets cut off or kind of just meanders away because that area is stable air. So you're going to have the dynamics down here. But will storms actually fire? If they do, they could be significant up here. And that's why you have a hatched area of a 10% risk inside or over, if you will, this area of a 30% risk of severe weather and a 15% risk. It's a 10% chance of more significant severe weather occurring inside this 15 and 30% chance of severe weather occurring in 25 miles on any given point. So this could be a dangerous setup. It could be. Now, taking a look at Saturday. Now, This is going to be a threat of severe weather here in the Quad States regions and southern areas of Illinois, even a small section in Indiana, Kentucky, places like that, southeastern Missouri, even areas of Tennessee and Arkansas, Quad States region. But this is looking like more of a linear threat, meaning there could be just a line, a bowed out line of severe storms. Damaging winds probably be the biggest threat with that. But we'll see how this materializes. There's probably going to be an isolated tornado threat with this, but we need to get a little bit more confidence on this before we know exactly what's going to happen. We're never going to know exactly what happens, but we can have an idea, a better idea as we get in range of these short-range models. So be careful with this region right here Saturday. Then we get into day 6. Well, I'm sorry, day 5. There is a risk for severe weather in western areas of Texas also. Midland, Lubbock, Abilene, Fort Stockton. Every little small western Texas town in between. Severe weather for this is going to be for a totally different low pressure that develops. It really brings a deep area of low-level moisture down to this area. I'm talking about dew points reaching the 60s and 70s into this region. You're going to have Cape values that spike, and I'm really concerned about some nasty severe weather in this area. Capping will be another issue in this area, but we'll talk more about that in the coming days when we know more. And then this shifts to day 6, which is Monday, next Monday, all the way out to next Monday. It's 5 days away. And there is going to be a ton of moisture in place with this setup. You're not going to have to worry about any kind of moisture issues. Dew points will be in the 60s and probably deep into the 70s with this setup. So you're probably going to have some big-time Cape levels. But just because you have big-time moisture levels and Cape levels, that doesn't mean you're going to have a tornado threat necessarily. But to me, it definitely spells a big-time large hail threat potential and damaging wind threat. But we'll have to see how this evolves. And nothing's set in stone for this, but just know that, you know, the early part of next week, severe weather's on the way. So what's responsible for all this severe weather? Well, moving into overnight tonight, you see this little area of blue. This is an upper trough. It starts to kind of dive into the middle of the country. It's bringing moist air along this area. Dry line will set up right in here. Deep moist air surges all the way up in Nebraska. And then it gets cut off. And as this cutoff low, or cutoff upper level, closed upper level low, really pivots over the middle of the country, ejects. It creates a severe environment for severe weather here in the Quad States region. Then this moves on out. And then you watch for another system down here that really rips here this deep area of moisture out the Gulf of Mexico and really puts a nasty, humid air mass, tropical-like air mass into this region for sure moving forward here. And in fact, you can look at this here. You're basically looking at the latest GFS, actually the GFS from the 12s. It gives you the idea of how you have days on end of consistent moist returns into this area of the country, the southern plains and the western areas of the deep south. We're getting into Friday. Here's those dew points well into the 60s, close to 70. 60s reaching all the way to the triple point here in Nebraska. And you keep going here, more stable air kind of pushes it down a little bit temporarily, brings that moist sector into the Quad States region, creates a severe, somewhat of an environment for severe weather into this area. Then you start to build into Sunday. Moist air really returns for a large portion of Texas, maybe not quite into the panhandle of Texas, but deep moist air. I'm talking, dew points into the 60s and 70s. Really sets the stage for that. That low-level moisture that could really promote a severe weather environment into Sunday and Monday. That's just one factor for severe weather down this area, but it's something we need to watch out. As we're getting into Monday afternoon, dew points well into the 70s in areas of east central and eastern areas of Texas, and just a big-time moist environment for the South in general, even all the way into the Carolinas. I think really the first couple days of May next week could really feel like early summer across the South. It really can, with the humid air really building into the region. But really talking about the severe weather threat tonight, some lingering showers and storms will continue to be an issue here in areas of these regions right here in the U.S. But as we're getting into tomorrow, we're getting into Thursday morning, maybe waking up some showers and storms. Probably northwest of Oklahoma City, west of Tulsa. But as we're getting into areas of, in fact, let's go on and switch to this. As we're going into areas of tomorrow, we're getting into Thursday. Lingering moisture will kind of go across Oklahoma, southern sections of Kansas, wake up to more you'll end up with more afternoon showers and probably a little bit of storm activity in Missouri. It seems like you guys get a storm, and I've been getting storms, rain, basically rain in general in Missouri over the last several days. It's just nonstop. But then as we get into tomorrow afternoon, watch out for a couple big-time storms here in areas of Nebraska, maybe a supercell or two in the middle of Nebraska, and this could quickly kind of combine into more of a congealed area of storms. And then there is also a marginal risk down here, but notice there's nothing really that develops per the latest HRRR model tomorrow, and that's because that little bit of a capping in place in the upper levels of the atmosphere preventing any storms from really getting going. But watch out, especially up here in Nebraska. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to drop a slight risk up here in Nebraska for severe storms because the HRRR model is really showing the environment for some severe weather. And then this will continue through overnight to Thursday into Friday morning. Expect probably some severe storms here in northwestern areas of Missouri, maybe even areas of southern Iowa, and then far areas of northeastern Kansas. Moving forward, let's look at the NAM. Let's take a look at what Friday could look like. Well, here we go. We're getting into Friday afternoon, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Here comes the storm development firing up here in Kansas. We're showing this, how is this going to develop? We only can look at the NAM, which is the long range NAM, but it's showing storms firing up in this region where it has the enhanced region right in here. But how will they materialize? How will they form? Well, this is just what the NAM looks like. It just shows a couple line of convection. It doesn't look overall that impressive as far as the structure of these storms, but we won't really expect it to until we can get into a further closer range to know what's going to happen. But the NAM almost shows a semi-linear type look where it just kind of has a line of broken up showers and storms. But you notice if we flip it down here to Oklahoma, that's Oregon, not Oklahoma. Flip it down to Oklahoma for the prime time of this event. Nothing forms down here, only kind of a bowed out line of storms, but no supercells form along this dry line. So the NAM's not really liking the idea of any convection firing up down here. It only shows kind of a line of storms that kind of drags down to Oklahoma for your late Friday into the wee hours of the morning Saturday. So we'll have to see. We'll have to watch the trends. We're not in range of the HRRR model for Friday yet. But what we do know here is you're going to have some big-time cape levels in this region. We're just going to look at mixed layer cape. And, it's going to build here. Let's see if we can look at surface-based cape. That's what I really want to look at here. Because at the surface, you're going to have a lot of cape that really builds into this region. But, how much does it get past that area of stable air, right? So you can obviously tell what the triple point is. It kind of congeals up into this area. But look at the dry line where you had the dry air. That's more stable air. You're not going to have any cape in this area. You're not going to have any storm juice. Nothing for the storms to really latch onto moisture-wise. But on the east side, this line right here, where you have dew points rising well into the mid to upper 60s, cape levels in response rise well above 2,000, 25,000 joules per kilogram. Cape meaning that energy that the storms can fuel off of. Just think of it as storm juice, storm energy. I've always called it the juice in the atmosphere. So it's going to be there, but will storms fire up along this dry line? It's a big question here. And speaking of dry line, you can really see it develop here as we're getting into Friday afternoon. Look how stout of a dry line this is showing up on the NAM. Right down here, very, very dry air on this side of the dry line. But then look how quickly. I've always wanted to experience this. I've always wanted to be out in the middle of the country during a dry line event. One, to see some pretty cool storms. But two, to just actually feel the difference when you cross the one side of this dry line to the other, how quick and how humid it gets very quickly into this region. But dew points well into the 60s here in areas of central and eastern Oklahoma, and then eastern Kansas, even all the way up in southeastern Nebraska. So you're going to have the clashing of the two air masses of very dry and moist air to cause that lift and that forcing and basically that dynamics to really create severe weather. But will it happen? It will have a cap in place, so it's a big question on whether it will happen or not. But that is a strong cap. See how the temperatures are going down very quickly actually, and then bang, they spike here, including a moist area that spikes also. But you see how the temperature spikes here by a few degrees. That is stable air aloft. Probably about 4,000 or 5,000 feet up in the air, and then temperatures quickly drop. Steep lapse rates, that's what that is. When temperatures quickly drop, the higher up you go. The higher up this little graph goes, that's the higher up in the atmosphere it goes. So steep lapse rates are there, which causes big time cape and normally causes big time very large to very large hail. But you know, you got the hodographs there, really curving, looped hodographs. But will this pop off? Will the cap break in areas? It's a big question here. But you know, as far as a significant tornado parameter, you know, this isn't always the best thing to look at, because people look at it and say, oh, there is this amount of chance for a tornado to happen. But just look at this and think, if anything does form in this area, you know, you do have a chance for a tornado. It's just if it does form, and it's a very razor thin line that shoots through Kansas and Oklahoma. So we'll have to see how that happens. Talking about the Saturday threat, this closed low will continue to pivot through Iowa. This will bring a moist sector all the way into the Quad States region, setting the stage for the Saturday event. So moist air will be in place for the severe weather event, but what will be the storm mode? That's a big question. You will also have a little bit of some low-level jet, a little bit of them kinematics, low levels of kinematics in place, with a low-level jet pushing 30 to 40 knots. So some of these storms could be spinning a little bit. We have to see what, you know, atmosphere, but I don't think this is going to be a big threat. I really don't. But as we shift into the, you know, the Sunday and Monday threat, we take a look at Sunday, and I mean, look at the dew points starting to rise into Texas. You know, you're starting to get dew points rising well into the 60s, all the way. In fact, you're getting a moisture return all the way into certain sections of New Mexico. So moisture getting all the way out here into the western states. So this is going to be a big return of moisture that comes up. And in fact, you start to get into Monday, and man, I mean, that is a humid air mass for Monday. Dew points per the GFS getting well into the 70s around Dallas-Fort Worth. And that is why y'all have that 15% risk. Not the only reason why. Many other factors are in play too, but that is why you have a severe weather threat around this area. Big time dew points rising, a lot of moisture at the surface, a lot of moisture into this area. In response, you're going to have CAPE levels that probably read crazy amounts. In fact, I anticipate some crazy model output showing some pretty high CAPE levels in this region over the next couple of days. But you have CAPE levels at the surface reading well over 2,000, 3,000 joules per kilogram in response to this big time moisture. And every time I say in response, anytime you see high end dew points, a lot of time in response you get high end CAPE levels. That doesn't mean necessarily you're going to have crazy severe weather. It just means that, hey, the potential is there. You have a lot of thermal depth, and normally you have temperatures that are pretty warm too, well into the 70s and 80s, sometimes 90s. That's just telling you, hey, the thermodynamics are there for the most part. It just kind of depends on what's happening in the upper levels of the atmosphere as far as wind speeds, wind directions, what kind of kinematics do you have? Do you have, you know, what's firing up convection? What kind of forcing do you have? So much stuff goes into making severe weather. But that's all I got, guys. Y'all stay safe over the next few days. I'll continue to keep you guys updated. We'll have more information tomorrow evening when we have more in the range of these short range models. But y'all have a great night. God bless, and I'll talk to y'all soon.